So I'm admitting. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Greyhalb. Karibu sana. Liz Bichovi. Karibu sana. I think she's trying. She's still joining. Should be able to join. What a beautiful morning it is, and today is a beautiful day again, as we will be talking about very, very powerful conversations. Karibu sana. Grace let's get Mugo. Yeah. As I admit a lot more. Karibuni sana. Welcome. Hilda Kibor. Karibu sana. Of course, our faculty member, Paul Kitemu, Karibu sana, wherever you are. We have Ben Wanyoike. Actually, I think he was the very first person to jump in today. Very beautiful conversations that are going to happen today. And so we are happy to have you all. Yeah, I'll welcome a few more, then we should be able to just jump into the meat proper and give our speaker just ample time. Karibu sana, Dr. Lucy, how are you?
Doing very, very well, after the long break, and looking forward to this conversation. And good morning to all that have joined us this morning as we go through the world of customer experience, a world that continues to grow, a world that continues to expand in so many ways across the entire organization. Yeah, so Duncan, doing very well. What about yourself? How are you this morning?
Good. There's a joke around. Someone who was asked, "What are your plans around Easter, the holiday?" And said, "I'll just behave like Jesus. I'll disappear on Friday and show up, resurrect on Sunday or Monday."
Or
So it's a beautiful, beautiful morning. I've had a good time. I feel rested. Really feel really rested. Sometimes I'm not too sure I'm resting enough, but it's been a beautiful, just, sort of like an early, snack for the year. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, so today we continue with a conversation that we started a little earlier in the year in the world of customer experience. And as we continue to go through these conversations, what becomes very, very important is what is it that we are picking, but even more importantly, what is it that we are doing differently based on the lessons that we are having. Remember last week we had a conversation around how customer experience is really the brand in action. Yeah, Duncan, I don't know what was your main pick out from that conversation.
For me, actually, customer experience is the moment of truth. Every brand has a promise, and a lot of times customers come to actually verify that promise that you've made. I'll give an example. My friend is in the room. If, for example, NCBA Banks tells us go for it, when I go to every branch, I'm looking forward to confirm that they're actually cheering me on to go for it. And that promise that has been shared to customers is pretty much what customers want to come and experience. And customer experience is the brand in motion. It's the brand. It's actually what we call the moment of truth, when we verify that what you've been telling us on TV, on placards, that we actually will have a feel and an experience of that brand. And so that was my takeout. That and I think a famous quote that a good brand is a promise made and a promise kept. And how do we keep it? It's at the touch points of customer experience.
Yeah, no doubt that everyone needs to be involved in these weekly breakfast conversations that are brought to you by the Customer Experience Academy Africa. And once again, thank you to all that have joined us this morning. And just to tell you a little bit more about the Customer Experience Academy, we consider ourselves to really be trying or aiming to shape the future of customer experience in Africa and to share Africa's customer experience stories, because we believe that there's a lot that is happening in our continent, and we need to then be able to share those stories so that those stories can be able to inspire many others to really focus on the customer. And we do have quite a number of solutions that are really focused on empowering professionals at every level, not just those in customer experience, but professionals across the different areas in our businesses, and to be able to empower them with the skills, with the knowledge, with the tools that they need to then be able to excel in a landscape that is really evolving. And one of the reasons why we've continued to have these breakfast conversations is really to create awareness about customer experience and to be able to empower those that are working with us the journey. And at the Customer Experience Academy, we are the go-to provider, for all the customer experience solutions to organizations of all sizes, to organizations across industries, because we believe that it doesn't matter what industry, it doesn't matter what size of organization yours is. The customer experience conversation needs to happen across the different industries, across different sizes of organizations. And we do have quite a number of programs, and especially those that are around learning and development. We do have these weekly breakfast virtual conversations. So we are inviting you to keep joining us every Tuesday as we continue to have these conversations. We do have the monthly Customer Experience Champions webinars. That's a 6-month program that we run every once in a month. And we are starting off the next cohort in May. Duncan, I know you're really looking forward to the second cohort, as we continue to build many customer experience champions, across organizations. And one of the other things that has really been very, very transformative in many organizations, is having in-house customer trainings, across the entire organization, where everyone is made aware about the value of customer experience, and that's the other area that we have been focusing on, as well as a boot camp that we're looking forward to in July, where we bring in the customer experience leaders and we look at where exactly are we at and what is it that we need to do to keep moving our organizations forward. But today, very, very excited about the conversation that we are just about to have. But before I tell you a little bit more about the conversation for today, I wish to introduce myself. My name is Lucy Kirudhu, joined by other faculty members from the Customer Experience Academy. Paul Kitemu is in the house. Duncan Juma will be our moderator for today's conversation. And really, as we go through this conversation, we'll be asking ourselves, what are those numbers that matter in customer experience? So I'm also looking forward to learning, because through this journey, I have interacted with many of us that have come in as guest speakers, and we continue to learn. I often like to say there is no end to learning. And to you, Duncan.
Yeah, Dr. Lucy, thank you so much for that. And I like everybody in the room, Karibuni Sana. And I feel like we have the right people in the room to just jump and benefit and, just also share their experience with some of this that will be jumping off the conversation today. Our speaker for today, I don't know, it's a very small world. When I was told about our speaker, Bella, I was like, I think I know Bella. And I'll just quickly read a little bit about her for our benefit. Bella, of course, she's involved greatly in the global customer experience, and she's heavily on top of this mountain. So Bella, as she is better known amongst her peers, closest family and friends, is an exceptional, accomplished leader and customer experience advocate. She's considered a thought leader who has run a Customer Experience Center of Excellence, COE, driving NPS, best practice adoption, and accountability. She possesses a strong background in developing and implementing policies that translate to streamlined operations, much to the delight of fellow colleagues and the customers. Bella is highly adept at collaborative analyzing and closing process gaps and developing strategies in customer experience aligned to meet corporate objectives and business outcomes. Bella is NPS certified and a customer journey architect, currently pursuing her MBA at the United States International University. She holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Mathematics and Statistics from Moy University and a diploma in Business Management. She is recognized by mycustomer.com as top 5 2021 global CX leaders and is a Rome Africa who's an award winner 2020. She continues to be recognized as a systems thinker within cross-functional teams, well-versed in utilizing design thinking and to propel customer-driven growth. I know I've not done justice, but one of the things I know about Bella is that she enjoys being a mother to her 2 kids, and I know we will benefit greatly from listening to this thought leader today. Karibu sana Bella, and thank you so much. And as you jump in, as we were joining, a lot of people would like to know what are these, and from a mathematical standpoint, what are these matrices? What are we measuring? Could you just, maybe for the benefit of everyone in the room, you could just first of all walk us through the metrics that are involved in CX, and then from there we will pick this conversation. Karibu sana, thanks Bella for joining.
Thank you so much, Duncan and Dr. Lucy and Paul as well, the faculty of Customer Experience Academy. Thank you very much, audience, for joining into this session. I am glad to be here. Taking it straight on with the customer experience metrics for the benefit of those of us on the call that may need a refresher, a very short refresher on customer experience metrics. Let's dive into the basics. There's the Net Promoter Score, which is on a scale of 0 to 10, and we are asking our customers to rate us based on the experience that they've had, if they are willing to recommend us to their family and their friends. The customers that rate us 0 to 6 are known as detractors. We mark them with a red on the dashboards. Customers that rate us 7, 8 are known as passives. They are neither here nor there. If they are offered something by the competition, they will go. 9 and 10 are our promoters. They rave about our brands. They talk to their family and their friends every time they've interacted with the brand. They walk into the house excited to tell their family members about the experience they've had with their brand. This team of people, the 9 to 10s, are the easiest in terms of engaging when you want to get referrals. All right, so NPS itself is a difference in percentage between the promoters, the ones that rank us 9, 10, and the detractors, the one that's rank us 0 to 6. That difference in percentage can range from negative 100 to positive 100. If you're in the negative scores, it means your detractors are more than your promoters. If you're at an NPS of 0, it means that your detractors, the very unhappy customers who are also talking about your brand, but in negative light, are the same percentage as your promoters. Something needs to be done. When you have a positive score, above 0 going towards positive 100, you're doing well. And there's benchmarks for different industries that indicate where is the best positive score you could be in NPS. All right, then let's go to CSAT. And if this is resonating with anyone on the call, I know there are some people who've automated these dashboards. They're like, Bella, why are you taking us through the calculation? And I'll tell you why a little bit later. CSAT, the other one that's commonly known within the CX world, measures customer satisfaction. And the scale here is a Likert scale of 1 to 5. And 1 is your very dissatisfied customer. And it ranks all the way to 5, which is a very satisfied customer. Your CSAT will be the percentage of the customers that rank you 4 and 5. So 4 is satisfied, 5 is very satisfied. That number of customers divided by the total number of respondents multiplied by 100%. So you want to go for the highest CSAT scores. Of course, you want to go for the highest NPS scores. But what really does that translate to in terms of business outcomes? I'm coming back to it. Another one that we know commonly in customer experience is the customer effort score. We are measuring how easy is it for the customer to interact with you at a particular transaction point or a particular touch point within the business. Some people use a Likert scale of 1 to 7, some use 1 to 5. It really just depends. We are measuring level of ease of the customer of interacting with you, similar to CSAT. It's a percentage of all of the customers that say it's very easy, it's easy, divided by the total number of respondents multiplied by 100. And then there's the customer lifetime value. But before I go there, Duncan, before I go there, are we only score chasing? Is it that we want to measure and reflect the highest NPS, the highest CSAT, the highest CES? Do you want to reward customer-facing teams based on these scores? Or on the other hand, do we want to ask our customers about their experience, not only from a quantitative point of view where they rate us, but we also want the qualitative feedback. We want the customer to be able to tell us why they give us that rating. And I've had discussions sometimes with peers in CX where they say, Bella, we are seeing this customer is giving us a 9 on NPS. They're a promoter, but when you read their verbatim feedback, they say something positive, then they give us constructive feedback, something we can work on. How is that so if they are really a promoter, right? If a customer was satisfied, how is it that, oh yes, they're giving us positive feedback, and then somewhere here they're saying, oh, you could have served me better, you could have kept time, and something like that. Now, here's the thing. A customer can interact with your brand across multiple touch points at any one time. And because it's a memorable experience, the customer is going to bring home what they remember and what they felt about your brand. So let's give it an example. Very recently, I engaged a nail and hair salon. So they started out as a nail salon. That was their brand. And then they grew, they are expanding the number of their stores in different malls. So I walked in and said, let me go the hair and nail at the same place. And of course, when I was walking out and making my payments, they asked me for feedback. And I asked them, you know, what would you do with this feedback if I gave it to you? That's the other concern. As customers, we are survey fatigued and we are tired of giving feedback that's not being actioned. But anyway, this was my experience. So I talked to them about how my hair was washed and how the person that worked on my hair did it versus the person that did my fingernails and also my feet. I went for the whole shebang. And I gave them that feedback. And I wanted to ask them, have you digitized this process? Is there somewhere that I can give you feedback immediately after I walk out? Or do you time it? Do you want to check in with me a week later to see that the kind of service that you gave me is holding? And they said to me, no, they haven't. And they don't even have a score around it. And I said, with the verbatim feedback, will you put it down somewhere? What will you do about it? They're like, we're happy to get your feedback. And so the question is, if we are an organization that's very keen on how satisfied our customers are when they walk out of the door, so to say, or when they finish a transaction, what really are we doing with the verbatim feedback? That is where my weight is at. Yes, Duncan.
Very, very, very interesting. Yeah? You know the way in other quorums where people say umeanza kwa ubaya, like the numbers now have already been thrown at us. And Bella, sometimes I hear, like for example, people talk about NPS. Okay, maybe in our context, maybe say in primary school or high school, your pass mark is at 70. So a customer may be satisfied and they're giving you a 70 because they think it's a pass. But then from all these matrices, all these measuring tools that we have, is there a way to link it directly to business performance and how we harvest it? You've just mentioned about the salon. And I'm thinking, does it look like it's too much work for the salonists to, maybe they're just happy to hear that you're happy. But what's the correlation between all these, let's say NPS, CSAT, customer effort score? What's the correlation with that with actual business performance? Because part of the journey is for us to inform the business that this is what we can do to be better. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Duncan. It excites me to talk about customer experience metrics and the link to business outcomes. So we know one of the ways that you can get your leadership team to sit up in a room when you're making known the customer experience metrics is to link it to revenue generation or cost savings. You will have your CFO, your CEO, you will have them all listening with their ears peeled. As soon as you're able to say, this is the percentage of our promoters. So I'm zooming into NPS. This is the percentage of our promoters. And this is the number of referrals that we received from these same promoters versus this is the potential number of referrals that we could get month on month or week on week or day by day. And when you look at those referrals and the customers that are referring, we know that they spend a certain amount of money with our business. So for example, if this hair salon was to look at the history that I have had with them or any other customer for that matter, and see that on the first week of every month, customers usually come in, and the customers that purchase 2 or 3 of our services or products spend an average of this amount of money. Now, the likelihood that that customer is going to refer a customer just like them is very high. Now, if those referrals, the number of which you multiply to the average spend, that is the potential revenue that we are leaving on the table when we ask customers for feedback and find that they are promoters. They are excited about our brand. And then we don't ask them why, and we don't ask them for referrals. The flip side is we engage them on the why and look at everything that those promoters have said, then engage their referrals with that same level of engagement. There is some money on the table.
Awesome. And I think sometimes in my earlier life, I started as a customer experience executive. And there are times when, maybe half-year reports would be read or, but sometimes I couldn't link the two because I come do my day job, go away. I don't pay attention because sometimes it's not very clear to link my role and the business performance, but yet it's very critical that there's a value I add and I need to see the nexus between what I do and this. But maybe the question is, how do we actually then link that, how do we actually build a case? Because a lot of times you will hear, oh, customer experience cost center, you guys are just a call center, you guys, our bills and all. And yet we can find a formula with these numbers to say, hey, if you pay attention, this is what your customer is saying. You'll be out of business. How do we actually link? And maybe you could just give us an example of a way to tell this story so that the CFO sits up and listens. Your voice matters in the C-suite, and so to say.
Yeah. Okay, so first and foremost, in terms of appreciating our contact center agents and our customer-facing team agents, those guys go through a lot. Let me not even call them those guys. Let's say we go through a lot. In any one given day, you're going to have a couple of disgruntled customers. You're going to have a couple of very happy customers. You're going to do some outbound calls. You're going to do some inbound interactions across multiple touch points, depending on how your customer, let me say how you've segmented your customers and how interaction is happening at the contact center, whether it's based per touch point or years of experience or whatever the workforce management plan looks like at the call center. So it's important to keep our ninjas, I call them ninjas, our customer-facing team champions motivated. how you bring customer satisfaction scores, for example, to matter to them, and how you build motivation for them and speak to them and tell them that these numbers matter, is when you link the levels of, for example, issue resolution per agent to customer repurchase, or a certain type of behavior that that customer is exhibiting, courtesy of a problem that was solved for them. So, for example, I was going through some reports done by Zendesk, by Gartner, HubSpot, etc., and they said that about is it 60% of consumers would become repeat customers after an issue of theirs has been resolved in a timely way. So it's not that customers are saying, once I have a bad experience, that's it. Of course, there are those that will define their loyalty by that and they will move to the competition. But also customers who've been with the business for a while and get their issues resolved in a timely manner, in a personalized manner, are likely to repurchase. They're also likely to recommend people. Think about it, Duncan. I mean, not all brands that you interact with have been perfect. For me, I like to give the example of groceries. Ever since COVID, I've been ordering in groceries and it became a habit. So there's this particular apps that I used, and the retail stores that were using those apps as providers as well would disappoint me from time to time. But I didn't abandon the brand. And how and when they resolved those issues really mattered. But here's the thing. I made sure, only because I'm a customer experience professional, but I made sure to appreciate certain individuals who worked hard, and I know that they went out of their way to resolve my issue. So that is how you reflect back to the team that what they do matters. It's a close the loop process, which I must say most companies have not mapped out. So an issue arises, and then we recognize the magnitude of that issue. It's costing us this number of man hours. It's costing us this number of minutes in our contact center to resolve. This is the impact to the business. This is the risk in terms of what we are likely to lose if we do not mitigate. But there's a contact center ninja who needs to know that because they are picking that call outside of their work hours, because they're doing that extra thing, when that issue gets resolved, they have saved the business an average amount of certain money, or they have contributed to revenue projections at this rate. And that story needs to be told a little bit more often.
Very, very interesting. And maybe just to tie it in, there's a question on NPS in the chat section. Maybe we'll touch just a little bit about that, and then we will continue with this very insightful conversation, Bella. There's a question, someone is asking, should then NPS be trickled down to be a staff sort of performance? And I think where the question is coming from is where they're saying sometimes the customer, the agent, for example, has resolved the customer issue. The call is maybe perfect. Let's assume it's a call center. The call, everything, all the quality standards for the call have been met and the customer's issue has been resolved. But the customer has rated you as a detractor with positive verbatim. So then the question is, what are we measuring and how is this then an individual's performance? Of course, I also know where maybe you had bad experience, but because you trusted the brand, like you said, you're a repeat customer, you go in and you get a good experience. But then when you ask this question, perhaps you're still referring to past experience. And so the question is, should it be trickled down to individual performance, staff performance? And maybe you could just touch a little bit about that. How do we then cascade people to own this? An agent is maybe rated on something that IT should have done. You know, you're a bank, the ATM, then the caller called, you were nice, and you said, yes, there's an issue, but we are dealing. So as far as that is concerned, you've done your job, but then the customer detracts, so to say. What do you think about now cascading this performance to, and how do we measure it? Yeah.
All right. I feel like there are a couple of questions inside there, so I'll make an attempt to answer it the best way possible. NPS as a KPI, especially for our agents? How do we make sure it reflects against the customer value chain and the interaction with the entire business, not just with our customer-facing teams? And then what if the customer is giving positive verbatim, whereas their rating is very low? So here's the thing. If your NPS or your CSAT or your CES is properly mapped to a customer transaction point, that point needs to be owned by a couple of people. So, for example, if the customer is at the ATM and for some reason they have issues withdrawing their money, checking their balance, whichever of those touch points, they call into the contact center, or they type something on social media, which is supposed to be attended to by somebody in the contact center. That customer receives a notification for them to give us feedback, maybe 24 hours later, and they narrate first their ATM experience and then their call center experience. So they will give us a rating and then they will give us verbatim feedback. Does it need to be co-owned? I would say yes. Do we need to ensure our CX related metrics are mapped out as KPIs to our agents? Yes, but not to our agents only. Also, are we chasing the rating only, the score itself versus the verbatim? So I would like to say NPS particularly can be at a transactional level, but it can also be at a brand level. And I would not recommend, especially at a brand level, if it's periodic, that be held at agent KPI level. Because then there's a lot of things that have gone into that rating at any one time. There could be a lot of bias. There could be time that has gone by, and so the respondent has recall bias. They can't even remember the experience quite well. So if you're measuring it periodically, I wouldn't recommend that you boil it down to an agent and give it as a KPI. Also, if it's mapped to a proper touch point, it should be co-owned across the business. It should sit with IT, it should sit with marketing, it should sit with CX. And it's cautionary to hang it upon an agent. I think what we want to say is we want to keep our agents motivated, but we also want to keep them accountable. I would honestly rather keep an agent accountable for number of referrals or even issue resolution as compared to NPS or CSAT for that matter.
Very, very, very good wisdom right there. It's very interesting what you say. I remember back in the day when I was heavy in corporate or when I was working in corporate, I remember sometimes I worked at a call center, and sometimes you would go to these ungodly shifts. I used to call them, because you wake up at very interesting hours for extroverts. Those are, times when you should be dreaming or something. Then all of a sudden you're answering a call and you realize marketing had thrown a product to the media. And so as call center or, customer experience, you're meeting it first of all from the customer, not even so. In terms of internal alignment, maybe you can touch slightly about that, but then of course from that, when we're talking about co-owning, I think now it brings out the point that several people need to own, and there's a need for that internal alignment. And maybe you can just touch a little bit about internal alignment, then we'll quickly look at then how do we grow? Which business metrics should we use where? And maybe you could just give us that wisdom. So Bella, go for it.
Thanks, Duncan. When you were asking the question, I just remembered one of my previous employers. When I just got into the role, I asked which metrics matter. Like in my first week, I said, what do your dashboards look like? What are you measuring in customer experience? Now, it was one of those roles where they hadn't mapped it out very well, and I got my blank canvas for me to paint. And so I went in with these basic metrics that we've just mentioned before building upon them and showing the business worth of those metrics. But one of the things that I quickly found out is that a majority of our detracting customers or our unhappy customers were linked to a certain account manager in the commercial department. Like 90% of our unhappy customers, the account owner was this one person in commercial. I mean, by the time I released that statistic in a meeting, and I said, you know, what are the chances, guys, that we have an agent whose customers are completely dissatisfied with us? Also, that is the first time I ran the numbers and I said, on average, these customers engage us quarterly, and this is the amount of money that they give us. This is also their payment behavior. So they pay very well. However, the risk we are running is that these customers can churn at any one time. And then I asked a couple of questions, like, for example, why is this salesperson getting away with this? So is it that they are very good at selling, very, very good that that the business cannot stand to lose them? So they acquire customers very well. But the retention bit of it is where they leave it to customer success. I don't know that it has been our experience, customer experience professionals, where the sales team is like, our job is to acquire as we bring the customers. You guys deal with the retention. Or if a customer has an issue and they give feedback, you guys deal. Me, mine is to go hunt. And that's one of the places the relationship between CX and commercial can be, or can experience friction, or can be broken. Another example is the contact center and the CX fraternity across the business is collecting feedback, probably using surveys, or they're spooling feedback from social media interaction, the sentiment analysis that's going in from emails, outbound, inbound. There's all these other places where feedback is unsolicited, but it can be mined and analyzed by the business. And we can see a certain trend. And we are saying to marketing, these are the words the customer is using to describe our products and our services, right? So if I give an example again of our previous employer, there was a day I dared marketing and I said, this is a landing page of the website, and I work in this business and I cannot understand some of the words here. This is a lot of jargon. Like, I have to Google to understand what is on our landing page, and I work here. So now, how is it landing for our customers? And it was a friction time, because at some point the marketing manager was like, oh, now is CX going to tell us how to do our job? Kind of energy. And that wasn't it. I was just saying, here is a world or a repository of descriptions that our customers use for each and every of the products and services that we offer. Is it possible to use these same words in our website and our different landing pages? It was kind of a dare. And I said to them, in the next campaign, can we attempt to do that? And they did. Interestingly, they used those words to describe the kind of products and services that we were offering to customers during that campaign period, during that promotion period. And guess what, Duncan? You know, the number of leads, the quality of those leads, the conversion rate of those leads was significantly more than any other campaigns that they had run, because now they were synchronizing with what the customer understands. So that's an area, that's now an example of how marketing and CX can work together to ensure that the winning person, the winning party here is the customer.
Very, very interesting. Before, listening to you, Bella, I have no doubt that you're on top of this mountain. But I'm curious, in campus or college, but I was in more university, in campus or whatever. There was no course called customer experience, or rarely do you hear someone says, when I grow up, I want to be a customer experience professional. Maybe we can benefit from your growth journey before then we look at then what next? What are we going to measure next? Okay, we've measured the NPS. What's the next level of this? And maybe we'll benefit from that. But first of all, Bella, how did you arrive here? How did you, from mathematics to, yeah, walk us through that journey so we can benefit, because there's someone here who might want to grow. And maybe if you have any questions, ladies and gentlemen, you can put them in the chat section. You have a question for Bella, but for now, Bella, walk us through, how did you reach on top of this mountain?
All right, that's a good one, Duncan. There's what do you want to be when you grow up? When I was around 10, 11, 12, and I changed my mind quite a bit. My older siblings managed to sufficiently discourage me from certain roles that I wanted to be, saying either the market was crowded or, you would need to do something very unique for you to stand out in that essence. What they did not know is that they created a hunger in me to find out more about myself. At that very tender age, I wanted to understand what my unique capabilities are in the choice of a career. So as I went through my academic life, I did very well in mathematics. And at high school level, I actually wanted to go into actuarial sciences. And I didn't make it to. The next best bet was a degree in mathematics. And I thought it would come easy because I'd always performed well in math. I tell you, university mathematics, it showed me things. It showed me things. There's this course called pure mathematics. It just deserves another session like this one, where there's no numbers. There's only Greek alphabet there, where you are supposing everything. You suppose a number sigma, oh my word, a number alpha, a number beta. So when I went through that part of my academic world, I realized that I had a love, yes, for the numbers, but then I needed to also expand my thinking, and I needed to apply that into a career that is something I am passionate about. So I started a business at the site just during campus. I was helping people with their data analysis, believe it or not, for their projects. And then I came back into employment and I went into sales. Oh, yes. I went to CBA, the now NCBA, and I was there for about a year. They were transitioning from being more of a corporate-oriented bank to personal banking. And I had the privilege of working there for a year, and I interacted with customers that were under their scheme programs. And that is when it sparked for me. Honestly, as much as I went through an 8-year journey in sales, account management, consultative selling, that is when it sparked for me. I approached one of the BDMs and I said to him, I only need you to give me one referral. Give me that referral by name. Just one person. Call them and tell them about me, and I will go to meet them. And from there, I'm good. I will not ask you for anything else. And do you know, he gave me the sister of one of the prominent people in the country. And after I served her, because I really didn't know who she was, after I served her, she recommended me to many friends and family members, but more especially colleagues. I literally used to drop forms at the reception and they come pick them up. I hit my annual targets mid-year. Everything else was an excess. And after that, I was motivated to find out what is this thing that you can give a customer, even if it's one customer, that when you zoom in and you give them a personalized experience and you understand what their needs are and how your business or what you're offering can meet those needs, would lead to that customer telling everyone that they can about you. So I continued on in sales. And there's a company that I worked for in the industrial area that was doing branded merchandise. And I remember at my interview, when they asked me, what is this unique thing that I thought I could bring to them? I said, I've been to your website, and there's a particular segment of the market that you guys have not penetrated at all. And they said, do you think that if we hire you, you'd be able to bring them in? And I said, yes, without a doubt. I mean, you must believe in yourself. You must say yes. And the market segment was circles, specifically circles within the financial services area. And here's the thing, when I got in, I had something to prove. I put down the top 100 circles in Kenya. And at the time, Mwalimu National was the first one. I walked into Mwalimu National and met the then heads of comm and customer engagement. And we had a very nice chat, after which he gave me business worth the millions. I literally hit my target from someone I did not know prior, but because we had an interesting conversation and I was able to understand what he needs and what the business needs, and then link it to what I'm offering, I was able to do exactly what I promised that business. And so it sent me scratching again. I was scratching my head and I was saying, because people within the room, in the sales room, were saying to me, did you know this person prior? Who connected you to this person? How do you have an LPO worth 1 point something million on the first sale, on the first instance? Why? It just didn't make sense. The number one circle in Kenya, And I also scratched my head and I said, what was it about that interaction? This person is still a key contact to me. They're no longer with Mwalimu National, but they have also gone ahead to refer me through my sales career. No matter how many times I changed the organization or the offering that I was giving. Same to the customers, some of the customers that I held when I was at CBA, now NCBA. Those are now customers who can call me and say, we know you have transitioned, but would you know someone at such and such a place, and you're my solution provider, please help me out. Something that doesn't even have to do with what I sold to them prior. And so this is how I came upon customer experience, Duncan. I interacted with customer experience professionals and I said, isn't this what I've been doing just in sales from the other side? Haven't I been striving to understand customers' needs and meeting those needs and then doing it exceptionally well and looking forward to referrals? Haven't I been solving for customer problems? So I literally went to the other side of the table and crossed over to CX.
Wow. At CX Academy, one of our mandates is to tell these stories. We find like we don't get to hear enough of these stories, especially as I mentioned earlier. Sometimes when you go to university, rarely will you hear it that someone wants to grow into the customer experience. Yet, actually, that's all about business. That's when you think about relationship selling, there's an experience bit to it, and it's nice to hear you. But Bella, maybe just to bring back into perspective, different businesses would like to measure their experience using different metrics, and that's a given. And I don't know, maybe at some point you recommend what would measure what for what nature of business, but of importance, what customers' needs, experiences keep changing. If I have a good experience with you, when I'm coming back, I'm expecting more. So the question is, what next? Yes, you have NPS. I know about your promoters. Is that all? Or do we need to do a deep dive into then what's the quality of these promoters, or are they just trying to please us? Maybe you could just, what's this next level? And maybe as we come towards the close, it's just to say, what measures would best apply where, and in terms of the nature of businesses that our friends are in.
Yeah. All right. So as much as we've covered the basics of the customer experience metrics, there are some unique numbers that every business should be monitoring. Yeah. So something like customer lifetime value, you're looking at the average revenue that a certain customer should be able to give the business over the time that they spend with you. Also, I know a couple of businesses that are developed what they are calling their internal customer experience index. So it's a combination of metrics that are important to how they make decisions within their business. So it will, to some extent hold customer satisfaction. So whether it's a loyalty metric like NPS or CSAT or CES, whichever of those, it will take into account a certain touch point. It will also take into account the average revenue spend or the average cost savings due to issue eradication or even just issue resolution generally. So there are those metrics, and I don't think I want to put them under a blanket and say that this is what you should be tracking. It's fully dependent on the nature of the business and how you're interacting with your customers. Also, it's dependent on how much historical data you have. So if you want to build a certain type of model, you might have to look at historical data, previous interactions with your customers, then build an index or a model that's able to tell you not only the now experience, the now revenue, the now cost savings, but also predictive. So you're able to see a certain trend, let's say, before COVID, during COVID, after COVID, and then to make it better or sweeter, you probably want to estimate or challenge yourself and ask what else is there in the market that customers are telling us about or that we are noticing. Build it into your model. Now you're able to predict. Of course, not with 100% certainty, because like you said, customers' preferences are always changing. And these days, a customer is not just holding you to account. For example, if you're a bank, they're not just holding you to account because of the experience they have or their family member or their friend or their colleague has had with another bank. If they're interacting with your app, they are literally holding you against other apps, other app experiences, whether it's in the same industry or not. Mm-hmm. If they're used to checking their balances on an app by, let's say, M-Pesa, and now they want to check their balances on the bank app, and it's a painful experience, oh, believe me. So we want to hold ourselves accountable for those metrics that really speak to the nature of our business. And we want to drive models that we can look at that give us a predictive outlook. I've really tried to simplify it, Duncan, but there's a lot that goes into building those models. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of heard you almost saying now the mathematician has kicked in. And yeah, very, very interesting. I know, sometimes I was in a call with certain client of sorts, and one of their needs was to reduce demand, to whether it is their calling touch point. And I was like, will that not stop good demand from coming? Like if the target is just to, of course, customers don't call for the sake of calling. And if your product journey is good, sometimes really the agenda should be that customers are sorted and satisfied. They don't really have to call you. By the time they're calling you, maybe it is just on, to clap for you or something like that. So the question would be, if we're talking about guys like referrals, if you're talking about retention, if you're talking about promoters, is there a chance to then measure the quality of what that looks like and for businesses to benefit from that? And what if I'm just thinking as a layman, if we're to look in that lens, what are then the opportunities to actually make business sense out of such data, Bella?
All right, so I'll give again an example. And it's that one for the previous employer, when I went in and we built the dashboards around the customer experience metrics. I engaged the telesales team then, and I said to them, how many calls are you guys making per day? What's your expected target monthly? And then break it down to daily. What are those sales looking like? And we had a very good engagement, and they said, Bella, I think for us, it's top of the funnel. That's where you'd be able to make a difference. Just give us leads. Just feed us with leads and we will do the rest. And I asked them to say, is it really the number of the leads or is it the quality of the leads? Must we at least take those leads through a sieve of some sort, so that by the time we are giving you these leads, the likelihood of conversion and of you realizing your targets is actually heightened. And of course, they were agreeable. So we experimented, Duncan. We experimented with a touch point on the website. And guess which one it was? It was the chat function on the website. And we tweaked that journey in such a way that the customer was able to respond to 3 or 4 key questions. And in those questions, we were able to tell whether this customer is ready to pay, whether they are actually the decision maker, whether they even need the product, and whether that product is a fit for them. But those questions are very gentle questions. And once a customer was able to answer those, we could route them in the right direction. So we either route them into customer support, probably educate them a little bit more, give them resourceful material to help them in their decision making, or we route them to the telesales team where they get sold, for lack of a better term, they get sold. And when we were experimenting in this way, one of the things that was asked of us is why chat? And we said, that's where we're getting the most feedback, and that's where most customers are satisfied with the experience they're getting on the website. Also, it looks like a channel that has been untapped. So this is purely an experiment. The telesales team were a bit here, a bit there about it. And there's one particular one who said, give me those leads. So as the story goes, she literally hit her, I think her quarterly targets at the first month of every quarter. And so the larger team came to us and said, whatever experiments you're doing, Bella, whatever interactions you're having with customers to tweak the kind of engagement that they have with us, whatever journey processes you're tweaking, please embed us in those processes. So I hope with this example, I've answered your question, Duncan.
Awesome. We cannot get enough of this. And I feel like we need another session just to walk us through now the matrices, which by industry and what really work, the numbers in EX. I hope, ladies and gentlemen, you've benefited from this conversation. Before we get the parting shot from our facilitator for today, speaker for today, I'd like you to put in the chat section, what have you picked? What are you hearing? What are we saying about the numbers that matter in CX? And which one would you deploy? Or do you have a question about any particular metrics? Of course, from CX Academy, we'll be able to relay all that feedback, also support in areas that you would like to be supported in. Let me just check in the chat section. There's someone said both quantitative and qualitative. Question to all of us, how well have we mapped out our CX metrics? And I think there's a question, we're asking that you can post your questions there. Maybe this is a good time to say, Bella, it's been interesting to see that actually numbers matter in CX, and for our voices to be heard, for us to win collaboration from even other stakeholders, we need to come on the table prepared, and part of the preparation is these numbers. What would be your parting shot for today? Then we'll have Dr. Lucy just wrap it up for us today.
All right, my parting shot would be the mantra that I follow from St. Jerome. It says, good, better, best. Never let it rest till your good is better and your better is best. If you're looking to continuously, scale or to continuously build on the kind of experience you're giving your customers, look at more numbers. Start to ask yourself certain questions in terms of impact to the business, and then go for it.
I like that. Dr. Lucy, go for it. Sounds like Bella never quite left the CBA, NCBA, once.
You know what they say, you can take me out of there, but you cannot take the
We have
The
actually
brothers of me.
a senior member of NCBA in the room, so maybe they will be headhunting shortly. Dr. Lucy, you can take it
Yeah,
away. Thank you so much.
thank you so much, Duncan. Thank you so much, Bella. I always say to CX professionals that numbers will follow you wherever you go. Numbers will follow you. And I know, Bella, we've had conversations around numbers, and because there are not a lot of questions that were asked, I have a number of questions that I would like to pose to those that have joined us this morning. And the first one is, how are we using numbers to drive customer experience conversations in our businesses? What is working and what is not working? How have we mapped out our customer experience metrics across the entire organization? Are we using both quantitative and qualitative data? Are we just looking at the NPS score, or are we looking at what our detractors are saying, what our passives are saying, what our promoters are saying? Another key question is around how deep are we digging into the CX metrics and into other business numbers? How deep are we digging into those numbers as CX professionals? Are we questioning the data enough? We have a lot of data in organizations. How deep are we going into that data? And also very, very important, are we clear on the linkages of those numbers to business, to team, and to individual performance? There are so many other numbers we could have talked about, and which are those numbers that you're using, and how are you linking that? One of the numbers I really like is number of customer complaints, and how that links to business performance. How are we getting others involved in these conversations around numbers? And thank you once again to all that have joined us. And I really would like to invite as many as possible to nominate one of their colleagues, to be part of our monthly Customer Experience Champions program, because we have seen it transforming individuals to champion customer experience within their organizations. And we kick off on the 15th of May is when we kick off the next cohort. And we will really be asking ourselves, how do we define the role of a CX champion? What are those essential attributes of an effective CX champion? What are the fundamentals of customer experience? And what is the future of a CX championship? And to all that have joined us, once again, we want to say thank you so much for attending the session today. We do hope to see you next week on Tuesday. If it's not the Eid holiday, we will still be having our session. If it's the Eid holiday, we will then be communicating further. And we wish everyone a lovely day. Thank you once again so much, Bella. Thank you, Duncan. Thank you to all that have joined us this morning. Keep shining out there, and let us continue with these customer experience conversations within our departments and within our businesses. Duncan, let me see if there's any other question that has been posed even as we close this. Just seeing a comment there from Vidiana saying, amazing session, Bella. Thank you, CX Academy and team. Yeah, desire to make my customer interaction memorable. Not easy though, but it is a basis of all numbers, both qualitative and quantitative. Numbers matter. So as CX professionals, let's go out there and get to know a lot more about those numbers that matter. So thank you, and bye-bye, everyone.